Welcome, everyone, to the Win Now podcast, hosted by Deborah Byrd, founder and CEO of Plug and Play SM.
I am so excited for today's show, so let's go.
And then myself, Todd Bookspan, founder of Win by Noon.
Where are we not squeezing the juice out of the known relationships and opportunities that person who we just served at a high level could then introduce us to?
There's gold in your world already that people are overlooking. I think we're always looking for the next new thing. And I do think that it is a huge blind spot of most people to realize that they probably already have the relationship. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Win Now podcast. I am Todd Bookspan, the founder of Win by Noon.
And I am Deborah Byrd, the founder of Plug and Play SM. And for those of you who aren't watching, Todd just tried to do the fist pump thing.
Is that what that was? I thought it was like a dance. I didn't know it was fist pump. If it was a fist pump, I would have done it differently. But you know, what y'all miss who listen to it is Deborah, every time I'm doing my intro, she does this dance on the other side here. And I'm like, I just got to play along. And so, you know, one of the things that Deborah and I are always trying to do is look for blind spots. And Deborah talks to more people in sales than anyone I know. She does sales call after sales call after sales call. So every time I talk to her, she's got some new observation of something that someone should be doing that's really obvious to them. They even know it and they're not doing it. We all probably need to look in the mirror because it's probably all of us who have some version of a blind spot. So I thought we would look for the 3 mistakes that she sees most people in sales making. And let's start off. What's number 1 in your mind, Deborah?
I will say it's not squeezing the juice out of the known opportunities or the opportunities that come our way on repeat. And I think we get so focused in our everyday kind of world and process of just trying to get someone, whether it's from, listing presentation to signed agreement to then pictures and live listing. Like we're so used to our normal process that we never just step back and reflect on, okay, this person, maybe we help them downsize. Where are we not squeezing the juice out of the known relationships and opportunities that person who we just served at a high level could then introduce us to? So it's getting more from clients over time, as well as from partners, by just being more strategic in developing the system that makes it easy to then ask for either those referrals or those introductions, or extract more leads and opportunities from the people you're already doing business with.
Yeah, I think there's just gold in there's gold in your world already that people are overlooking. I think we're always looking for the next new thing. And I do think that it is a huge blind spot of most people to realize that they probably already have the relationships. There's a guy named Kevin Kelly who you can Google Kevin Kelly, like 1,000 true fans. And he used to be the editor of Wired magazine. He talks about you just need 1,000 true fans to be successful at whatever it is you're trying to do. And I view that in our world of sales, that we probably already know all the people and have all the connections and the leads and the past clients that we could dig into. We just don't maximize the opportunity, as you said. And a great story I would say was one of the funnest things I did. I had a really high producing loan officer that I was coaching one-on-one. He set a retirement date of 2030. And so we literally started off, I'm like, great, well, how much money do you need to have to retire? He's like, that's a good question. So that week he had to go talk to his financial advisor. So great. Then we knew how much money he needed to have. Okay, great. In order to get to that much money, how much money did you make each year in order to get there? Okay, figured that out. Great. Okay, how many loans do you have to close each year in order to get there? Okay, figured that out. Great. Then how many realtors referring you business do you have to have in order to close that number of loans? Great, we figured that out. And then he had to go out and get 27 new realtors. And so he's thinking first, where am I going to go find those new realtors? And I'm like, well, great, how many realtors are in your database? He's like, well, I've taught classes to 400 realtors the last 2 years. And I'm like, okay, great. So you're going to go get 27 new realtors versus just go to the 400 who already know you, like you, have sat through a class with you. And he's like, blinding flash to the obvious. And so it's funny. I had another client who also wanted to walk through a similar process. Same thing, needed more referral relationships, but didn't need to go meet a single new person. Really, all they do is go back and find of the people that had sent them business the previous couple of years that weren't sending them business, someone they had come across on the other end of a transaction that wasn't sending them business, but it was a successful transaction, or just someone that knew their name and at least would be a warm person to try to get business from versus someone else. And so when you said, hey, I think that they're missing opportunity, that was a huge blind spot that I found that I think a lot of people have. And then you also nailed it, right? Who are the other leads and people you serve who can refer me business?
Well, it just goes back to, I mean, any sales position, one of the core pillars is creating demand or lead generation. And so, what are you doing to optimize one, the client experience so that you have a bunch of raving fans that are writing reviews and being your like non-paid salespeople? So, part of that is lead gen. And then it's also lead management. How are you then extracting the gateways of opportunities that every person knows in their world? So, going back to the person who's downsizing, maybe they have a millennial child who is about to have their first kid and doesn't have a home yet. Like, this is where when we ask the deeper questions up front, do you have a way to then input that data to then be strategic of if you just zoomed out and looked at, okay, where's the next opportunity? Have I created that path? And do I have my next follow up in place? Like it's all about lead gen to lead management and then extrapolating as many opportunities from that one lead and making that a daily discipline because we have to prospect and lead gen every day.
So you would call that a repeatable plan, right? Mistake number two
Yes.
is that they don't have a repeatable plan. And what I would add in there is a written repeatable plan, right? You got to write it out because when you see it visually, then that's what you can go back to and say, okay, am I still doing it? Right. And then how would I improve it? Right. What do I need to add to it? What do I need to subtract to it? Right. A keep, start, stop. The old thing, it's, one of the things that I do every month, every quarter in my planner is what do I want to keep doing? What do I want to improve on that I'm currently doing, what I want to start doing that everyone else is talking about, like, oh, should I be getting one of these robot things built on my computer? Or what I want to stop doing, right? In fact, I got a big sign here. What should I stop today on a post-it note in front of my computer, which is kind of extreme because I don't really have anything to stop every day, but it's really, am I doing the most important priority right now, or am I getting distracted by a shiny object?
But the fact that you even know what your top priority is for each day and you're doing that before noon, where you eat the frog early, I think that's where we drift and we don't stay disciplined, especially when we start experiencing success. And that's why you see the roller coaster of performance, where it's like you've got to make the main thing, and a non negotiable. That's the standard for the day that must be done, assuming you know what those things are. And if you don't, then you need to get the Win by Noon planner because it literally tells you exactly what to do each day of the week. And as long as you do that, you're going to win your week, win your month, win your year. It's when we drift because we're starting to experience success.
Well, and we talk about a repeatable plan. So I view that kind of as two things, right? Is what are my daily disciplines? Like what are those things I need to do every single day, right? Which for anyone in sales is going to be lead follow-up. And then what are those target day activities? Like what are those things I need to be doing on a frequent schedule? At least once, typically it's once a week. And the standard one we always talk about is update calls. But it could be something that is, twice a month or something else that's on your calendar. But what are those things? And I think it's a opportunity then to add in the what are my standards for that thing, like what's the north star that I'm shooting for. But I think in the end it's most people don't have a repeatable system. If you go to the Win by Noon mastermind group on Facebook, it's got a few thousand members, and I'll let you in, just say I listen to Win Now, and you can go in there, and I've got the ideal week for loan officers and real estate agents in there. So if you don't already have a repeatable system, I'll just give you the download in there. You can get the repeatable system there. We'll make sure there's a link to it in the show notes. But I think that's kind of the place I would recommend people start and really look through. Like you said, like, have I had those conversations on repeat? Have I done the real estate review with my client they're going to look online at those companies that we all know, they like, the one that's, rhymes with pillow, that has an estimate of their value versus getting that from you as an expert, as a realtor. But you could certainly have on there a quarterly update to your client of, hey, here's what that website says your house is worth. What do you think? And then they say, I'm not sure. I think it's worth more or less. And you can say, oh, well, here's what I think and why. Here's the comps I pulled. So you can have an easy, repeatable system to remind them that you're the expert, not the website.
So my third mistake would be not having a CRM or a system that then houses the data. And a perfect example that just came to mind after you gave that example is a lot of times I hear loan officers will talk about, or at least ask their clients a little bit about the home. Like, how long do you think you're going to be in this home? Is this a forever home? Is this a starter home? And a lot of times we get that information. Maybe we learn it's a starter home. But if you then asked, okay, so what would have to happen next for you to then move out of the starter home? Oh, when our kids get a little bit older. Not that this always stays true, But, once they get out of middle school, or maybe once we get them out of daycare, then we'd probably look at moving up. So it's like we're given signals, but we don't have a way to house the data that can be proactive and letting us know. Again, this would be zooming out that if someone said, oh, we'll likely be there 5 to 7 years. Well, do you have anything set up in your system to start reaching out to them, whether it was because of said event that would have to occur or because of just knowing the time frame? If they know it's not a forever home, then why do we neglect and treat it as if it is? And so it's something as basic as that, but also just maybe you did all this work helping a partner with an open house over the weekend, like got flyers, the address, and then that Monday you ask, for the sign-in sheet, and your whole intent is to then call the sign-in sheet. Here's what I mean by the missed opportunities, or the data that's not being asked for, that if we just got in the system and the discipline to do, now we can get that information and then put it in a CRM. So these are the questions I would ask. Which of the buyers that came through the open house were just looking? Because usually you have those that are just looky-loos, those who are like ready to buy.
Cozy neighbors.
Yeah, and it's like most agents aren't coached on, hey, we will even work. Here's how you could refer even people who are just looking, and why they should contact us, even if it's 3, 4 years from now that they're realistically going to buy. Because at the end of the day, they showed up at an open house. So if you're looking like you're looking for some intent. But who are the people in the last 7 days you've showed property to that haven't made a decision? Or who did you speak to in the last 60 days that were denied a loan? Or it's just asking more strategic questions to extrapolate more of the opportunities from the ones already in front of us. But in order to then manage that, you need to have a CRM that continuously nurtures and provides value. Otherwise, you do all this work to get the contact, and then they forget about you because you're not top of mind and you're not reaching out to them when it matters most.
It's crazy how these things all three blend together because again, if they're not in your CRM with good notes that say, "Hey, I am, these people, their kids, freshmen in high school, and when their kid's a senior, they might consider downsizing." Number one is that if you don't have, that's the missed opportunity that you talked about, right? Because it's sitting there in your database, but it's 3 years out, so you're not thinking about it. Or maybe now it's only 2 years out, or maybe now it's only 1 year out, right? Because you don't have that repeatable plan where okay, I do an annual review with that client to check in, and then you don't have great notes in a CRM. You're like, oh, I really remember Deborah, her and Jordan. Like, I know they had 4 kids with amazing names, but like you don't know the rest of the details because you thought you were going to remember it. Like, I hate to say it, your brain's not a steel trap. And if it is, you really, David Allen wrote Getting Things Done. He talked about mind like water. He said, even if you have a great memory, it's still a mistake to be loading all these unnecessary details in there that you can actually have a system to capture so that you can let your brain be open for other things, right? At some point, you got a limit to how much it's going to retain. And what I find is that I talk to real estate agents, loan officers who are like, yeah, my client came back to me. And I'm like, well, what did you do to nurture that? Well, pretty much nothing, right? They did a great job up front. So, high five, you did a great job 3 years ago. But you should have actually been checking in with them, right? Because think about that. You had the one person who came back to you, but you probably missed the other 7 that would have come back to you this week too, who had the same situation. A perfect one was that a loan officer was super excited because their client reached out to him because their buy down has expired and their payment went up $900. And I'm like, well, shouldn't you have called them 60 days ago ahead of that happening? And they're like, they were just really excited because the client remembered him and liked him enough that they came back to him, which is great. Like, I'm thrilled for them that they did such a good job that the client came back. But at the same time, I'm like, gosh, you missed such an opportunity that now this client has stress, the payment's already adjusting, and you could have fixed this before the payment ever adjusted.
Well, see, and this is the simple swap of going back to number 2 of the repeatable system or process. I hear all the time advisors tell me how, the annual mortgage reviews, they send out the Calendly link, or they have their CRM send the automated reminder like a week before, and they're always chasing, and not everyone like books the meeting. And so before you hang up any phone call, always have the next scheduled meeting on the calendar, even if that means, okay, it's 2 days before closing, I'm going over your final CD. Maybe you don't attend closing. Okay. So you go ahead and set your 2-week post close or your 30-day post close meeting at that time. And then that 2 week post close, when you're going over, like, don't worry, I didn't sell your information to anyone. Like, I know you're getting all this mail, and here's what you do with your first payment letter, blah, blah, blah. If you go ahead and set your annual mortgage review meeting with the Calendly link, calendar invite, it's preset. Then you don't rely on your memory to have to remember, or you're not chasing those meetings that people get busy. So I literally just saw what my orthodontist did or dentist, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to do what the dentist does, even my hairstylist. And I learned that that's a revenue strategy because the more they can get you pre-booked, then you come in maybe one or two more times throughout the year, and that's more revenue for them. But it just creates that cadence where it's known, it's on the calendar. For some reason, they have to reschedule, fine. But again, when you're then having that review call, setting the standard up front of like, okay, we help you manage this debt that we just helped you create. We're going to help you for the next 30 years. The only ask that we have is when you come on this annual review meeting every year, that if there's at least one person in your world, whether it's someone at work or at your church that you know could benefit from our services, would you be willing to introduce us or do a warm intro at that time? So you're already setting the stage as well of like, this is how the relationship continues to grow with the expectation. We don't want just one referral from them after closing. Like, we want this to be the standard on repeat, where it also plants the seed for them of like, oh, I should be thinking of this throughout the year.
All right. So mistake number four is not asking for the referral. That's one of the areas that I was never great at and strive to be better at. And then the other part is I think you're correct. We always have a thing in sales of telling the person what's next, but I think it's more important, like you said, schedule what's next, because even if they can't, if they don't know if in, May of 2027, if they're going to be available on the 5th, guess what? At least they've made the commitment to you to meet with you then. And then when your system sends out the reminder, assuming you have a system that's smart enough that they can reschedule themselves, they'll be like, oh, shoot, I can't do it on the 5th because now I'm going to be at, whatever. But now they can reschedule it on their own. So think about how you can use technology to be a little more efficient as well.
Yes.
Loved it. All right. The three mistakes people make. Deborah, you crushed it. As always, appreciate your insight and the commitment that you have to talk to so many people to help them through how they can be better on social media and AI.
Okay, so make sure you share this with a friend. Make sure you like, you subscribe, give us a 5-star review if you feel like we've earned it. And as always, all you have to do is win now.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week.